Good morning. It's a rather murky November misty morning out there through the window behind me. Things can't quite be made out as clearly as sometimes, which is maybe quite appropriate for the title of this talk, which is The Unknown Image. Can't quite see the images clearly behind me. The French surrealist artist and poet René Char said, "It is impossible to live without having the image of the unknown ever before one's eyes." I'll say that again. It is impossible to live without having the image of the unknown ever before one's eyes. So, I guess perhaps he was talking from the point of view of a painter, and I imagine that a painter and other artists have this kind of vision, don't they? Or they have this idea, perhaps, for want of a better word, of something which they want to create, something in their mind which needs creating, which needs expressing. And maybe they have a strong idea, a strong representation in their mind of what that image might look like. But I doubt if they know exactly what that image is going to look like. Well, maybe they do, I don't know. But from my own experience as a musician, I've written a lot of music over the years, and often I start out with some kind of idea of what that piece of music might be like, at least to some extent. It may be just the germ of an idea, it may just be a few chords I've played on the piano or something, but I've yet to shape it into something. And I don't really know what that final shape is going to sound like or look like, because it hasn't yet been formed completely. So when I set about doing that, I don't so much set about committing myself to making something which is already very specific in my mind, very clear in my mind. At that early stage, it's still an unknown image, or in this case, an unknown sound. Partially known, perhaps, but not completely known. So I don't commit myself to a fixed idea of how it's going to be. I commit myself to the process of finding out what it's going to be. And sometimes it does turn out to be something which I can say is its final form, its final sound. But sometimes it doesn't turn into anything at all. Sometimes I decide that actually this isn't working, and I just scrap the whole lot. It may not amount to very much, but it might just not materialise. But in many cases it does. So this idea of the unknown image and always having it before one's eyes, I think it's something which draws us on. Maybe artists and musicians can relate to this. You know, it's something which draws you on. You want to express that unknown image. You want to find out what it is. And I think perhaps as soon as you've found it, or as soon as you've produced something or expressed something, then there's something about it which is perhaps never quite right, never completely satisfying. So you start the process over again. There's always an unknown image to be expressed, to be sought after, to be found, to be created, to bring form to. And I think it's like this with, I was going to say the spiritual life, for want of a better expression. Maybe I could say the Buddhist path. We maybe have some idea of a result, whether we think of it as positive mental states or whether we think of it as enlightenment. And maybe we have some kind of image, some unknown image of what this might be. And as part of the Buddhist path, we have the expression going for refuge to the three jewels, to the Buddha and the Dharma and the Sangha. It means making those three things kind of guiding principles in our lives, or the most precious things in our lives. That's why they're called three jewels, because they're most precious. And to some extent, we know what those three jewels are. The Buddha, well, the historical Buddha, Shakyamuni, maybe also any archetypal Buddhas that we're attracted to. And the Buddha is also the qualities of enlightenment, wisdom, compassion, and so on. And the Dharma we know to be the teachings of the Buddha. You know, all the Buddhist lists, the three lakshanas, the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, and so on. And we perhaps also know that the Dharma, as well as being the teachings, it's also a symbol of truth, of reality, the way things are. And the Sangha we know to be the community of practitioners with whom we practice, with whom we connect, and we perhaps also know it to be the whole history of practitioners of the last 2,500 years since the time of the Buddha, as well as all the archetypal bodhisattvas and all the teachers. So to some extent we know what the three jewels are, but we don't completely know what the three jewels are. We don't really know what anything is until such time as it becomes part of our actual experience. Until that point, all of these things remain concepts. For example, we know that life is impermanent. We certainly have the idea that life is impermanent. We maybe see impermanence all around us. But to what extent do we really know impermanence in the sense of knowing our own mortality? We don't really know that until it's part of our direct experience. Until we begin to get to the end of our life, perhaps. Or someone close to us dies. And then we know much more directly what impermanence is. We understand the unknown image that has been impermanence until this moment of really experiencing it. And when we commit ourselves to going for refuge to the three jewels, we're committing ourselves to something which is only partially known. We don't fully know what the three jewels are, but we commit ourselves, we willingly commit ourselves to the process of discovering what those three jewels mean in their fullness. It's a bit like with a relationship, to bring it down to a mundane level, a way that we can probably all relate to. So when we commit ourselves to a relationship with another person, we obviously know that person quite well already, but we can't commit ourselves to that person as a fixed being. We can't only want them to be in particular ways that we like. And we ourselves, we cannot commit as a fixed being ourselves, because we don't fully know ourselves. So in a relationship, we commit ourselves to the process of finding out what it's going to be like in that relationship. We commit ourselves to the highs and the lows of that relationship. There's always going to be unknown elements. Maybe that relationship is going to take us to fantastic places that we couldn't possibly have imagined before. And maybe it's also going to take us to some dark places. But we commit ourselves to it, and then all sorts of jewels emerge from that situation. If we don't commit ourselves, then we don't experience those fruits, those jewels. It's the same with Buddhist practice, whether it's meditation that we commit to or the whole Buddhist path. We just have to go in there with the willingness to discover the unknown image, the willingness to discover what it's like to go through the process of practicing, or we could say the process of creating. We don't know the final result. We don't even know if there is a final result. But we're willing to go to that place. We're willing to hold the image of the unknown ever before our eyes.